My name is Amelia, 34 years old, and I had always been the protective older sister. When Miranda announced her engagement, I decided to surprise her despite the 9-hour drive from Chicago through a raging snowstorm. I packed my car with supplies and a homemade cake, her childhood favorite. What I never expected was arriving exhausted, opening the door, and hearing my own sister say those words that shattered my heart. Before I tell you what happened after I overheard those crushing words, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from, and subscribe if you want to hear how I rebuilt my life after that night. Miranda and I were inseparable growing up. Being 4 years older, I naturally fell into the role of her protector and second mother figure, especially after our parents divorced when she was just 7. Mom worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, which meant I was often the one helping Miranda with homework, cooking dinner, and making sure she had everything she needed for school the next day. Those responsibilities never felt like a burden to me. I loved my little sister fiercely. Our childhood was filled with beautiful moments despite the financial struggles. We would build blanket forts in the living room during thunderstorms, telling ghost stories with flashlights under our chins. Every Saturday, we had our special pancake breakfast tradition where we would compete to create the most outlandish pancake shapes and toppings. During summer breaks, we would ride our bikes to the local library, checking out stacks of books that we could barely carry home. When Miranda struggled with math in middle school, I stayed up late tutoring her until concepts clicked. When she experienced her first heartbreak at 15, I was there with ice cream and movies all weekend. When she needed a dress for prom, but mom could not afford it, I used my first paycheck from my part-time job to buy her the beautiful blue gown she had been eyeing for months. The look of pure joy on her face made every extra hour of work worthwhile. Perhaps my biggest sacrifice came when I received a scholarship to Northwestern University. It would have been my dream school, but it meant moving 3 hours away. Miranda was going through a difficult time adjusting to high school, and Mom was dealing with health issues. I chose instead to attend the local community college so I could remain at home supporting both of them. Later, I transferred to a state university in Chicago, still close enough to visit on weekends. Miranda always said she wanted to be just like me when she grew up. She kept a photo of us in her locker, bragged about my accomplishments to her friends, and called me first with any news, good or bad. I never resented putting her needs before mine. That was just what big sisters did, I thought. The first signs of change appeared when Miranda left for college 5 years ago. She had been accepted to an exclusive private university 8 hours away, a school we could only afford because of her academic scholarship. I was immensely proud of her, helping her pack, driving her to campus, and decorating her dorm room before saying goodbye with tears in my eyes. The weekly phone calls we promised each other quickly became monthly. Her texts grew shorter, often with days between responses. When I visited campus for Parents' Weekend, she seemed distracted, rushing me through introductions with her new friends and cutting our dinner short because of a study group. I told myself this was normal, that she was just establishing her independence and finding her place in this new world. During her sophomore year, Miranda met Harrison Williams. He came from old money with family connections stretching back generations in politics and business. Their family name adorned buildings on campus and in the surrounding city. From the few photos she shared, Harrison looked exactly as you might expect: tall, polished, with the confident smile of someone who had never been told no. Miranda began changing in subtle ways that became more pronounced over time. Her wardrobe shifted from quirky thrift shop finds to designer labels. Her voice developed a slight accent I had never heard before, mimicking the speech patterns of her new social circle. When she came home for holidays, she spent most of her time on her phone or making plans with old friends who had similar connections or status. Conversations about her relationship with Harrison were oddly guarded. She deflected questions about meeting him, always with vague excuses about his busy schedule or family obligations. 2 Christmases passed without an introduction. I began to wonder if she was embarrassed by our modest home or our middle-class background. When Miranda graduated, I took time off work and drove to her ceremony, bringing flowers and a handmade card. She introduced me quickly to Harrison before being whisked away to take photos with his family. Later that evening, at dinner with his parents, I felt invisible as they discussed vacation homes and shared acquaintances with whom I was unfamiliar. Miranda barely glanced my way, laughing too loudly at jokes that were not particularly funny, touching Harrison's arm with a performative affection that seemed rehearsed. After that weekend, our communication dwindled further. Months would pass with only the occasional text or social media comment. I still sent birthday gifts, holiday cards, and checked in regularly, but her responses were increasingly delayed and impersonal. The news of their engagement came not from Miranda, but from our cousin Sophia, who had seen the announcement on social media. The elaborate proposal had happened on a private beach in the Maldives, with professional photographers capturing every moment. I waited for her call, thinking surely this news would warrant reaching out to her sister. 3 days passed before I finally called her myself, congratulating her with genuine happiness despite the hurt of being an afterthought. "Oh, I was going to call you," she said, sounding distracted. "Things have just been so crazy with all the planning." "When is the engagement party?" I asked, already looking at my calendar to request time off. A pause. "Actually, the invitations already went out last week. You should be getting yours any day now." 2 weeks passed. No invitation arrived. I called again, trying to sound casual. "That is so strange," Miranda said. "I definitely sent you one. Maybe it got lost in the mail. The party is this Saturday at Harrison's parents' estate. Very small, just close friends and family." I knew what very small meant in her new world. Probably 100 people minimum, all from the right social circles. Still, I was determined to be there for my sister on her special day. I requested Friday off work planning to drive down early to help with any last-minute preparations. "Actually, the professional planners have everything under control," she said quickly. "Why not come Saturday morning instead? The party does not start until 4 in the afternoon." It felt like another brush off, but I agreed. Then on Thursday, a massive winter storm system was predicted to hit the Midwest. I called Miranda again this time, getting her voicemail. I left a message saying I would try to make it, but the weather might delay me. She texted back hours later. "No worries if you cannot make it. We will catch up another time." Those words stirred something in me. After years of drifting apart, her casual dismissal of my presence at this important event felt like the final straw. That was when I made a decision that would change everything. I would go storm or no storm, and I would bring her favorite raspberry chocolate cake, the one our grandmother used to make for special occasions. Maybe, just maybe, this gesture would bridge the growing distance between us. Friday morning arrived with urgent weather alerts blaring from my phone. The storm was moving faster than predicted, with forecasts calling for up to 12 inches of snow across my entire route. My coworker Natalie found me in the break room scrolling through the weather radar with a frown. "Please tell me you are not still planning to drive today," she said, setting her coffee mug down with emphasis. "They are closing highways already in western Illinois." "I have to go, Nat." I insisted, showing her the cake carrier already packed with supplies. This might be my last chance to reconnect with Miranda before she officially becomes a Williams. You know how they are already monopolizing all her time. Natalie gave me that look, the one that said she thought I was being both stubborn and naive. "She is not the same person anymore, Amelia. You keep trying to revive a relationship that she is not investing in. Is it really worth risking your safety?" Her words stung because there was truth in them, but something inside me could not let go of the sister I had practically raised. "I have to try one more time. Besides, I have got everything planned out." And I did. My trunk contained an emergency kit with blankets, hand warmers, a first aid kit, flares, and non-perishable food. I had a full tank of gas, snow chains for my tires, 2 power banks for my phone, and a detailed map with marked rest stops and alternate routes. The cake was secured in a special carrier nestled between ice packs to keep it fresh during the journey. I left Chicago at 5:30 in the morning, hoping to beat the worst of the weather. The pre-dawn sky was clear as I pulled onto the expressway, giving me a false sense of security. NPR kept me company as I watched the sun rise, painting the horizon in pinks and oranges that gradually disappeared behind thickening clouds. The first snowflakes began falling around 7, just tiny specks against my windshield that barely required wipers. By 8, the flurries had intensified, reducing visibility and forcing me to slow down. I still maintained a steady pace, thinking I might reach my destination by early afternoon if conditions did not worsen. They did worsen. By 9:30, I was gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, leaning forward as if those extra few inches would help me see through the wall of white. The highway had transformed into a treacherous path with fewer and fewer cars. Those that remained moved cautiously, hazard lights blinking like nervous fireflies through the swirling snow. I tried calling Miranda around 10, wanting to let her know I was on my way despite the conditions. The call went straight to voicemail. I left a brief message trying to sound cheerful rather than anxious or resentful. "Hey, it is Amelia. Just letting you know I am on the road. Might be a bit delayed because of the snow, but I will be there. Looking forward to celebrating with you." The next 3 hours became a blur of concentration and tension. Twice I felt my car begin to slide on hidden ice patches, my heart pounding as I recalled the defensive driving techniques I had learned years ago. Turn into the skid. Do not brake suddenly. Stay calm. At a rest stop just past the state line, I pulled over to stretch my legs and check the weather updates. The restroom was crowded with other travelers seeking refuge from the storm. An elderly couple sat at a table sharing a thermos of coffee, while a mother tried to entertain restless children who clearly sensed her anxiety. Roads closed 10 miles ahead, a truck driver announced to no one in particular as he stomped snow from his boots. They are diverting traffic to Route 16, but that is barely passable too. My heart sank. I pulled up the map on my phone, searching for alternatives. The detour would add at least another hour to my journey, possibly more in these conditions. I texted Miranda again, updating her on my delay. No response. Back in the car, I allowed myself a moment of doubt. Was Natalie right? Was I chasing a relationship that existed only in my memory? The Miranda I knew and raised would have been anxiously checking on me, worried about my safety in this weather. This new Miranda could not even be bothered to respond to a text. I shook off these thoughts and pulled back onto the road. The detour took me through small towns I had never heard of, where snowplows struggled to keep main streets clear. The normally 5-hour drive had already stretched to 7, and I was only 2/3 of the way there. During a particularly bad stretch of road where the snow was drifting across the lanes in blinding sheets, memories flooded back unbidden. Miranda at 10 proudly showing me a science project we had worked on together all weekend. Miranda at 16 crying on my shoulder after failing her driver's test, and her joy 2 weeks later when she passed on the second try. The way she had hugged me at my college graduation, whispering, "I am so proud of you, Amy. You are my hero." Had I imagined that closeness, had it meant less to her than it did to me? I stopped twice more to clear snow from my wipers and headlights. Each time I checked my phone, still nothing from Miranda. I sent her another text, about 2 hours away now. The cake survived the journey. See you soon. As the afternoon wore on, darkness began to fall, making the drive even more challenging. My shoulders and back ached from tension, and my eyes burned from straining to see through the swirling white chaos. But I pressed on, determined to reach my destination. Around 6:30 in the evening, almost 9 hours after leaving Chicago, I finally turned onto the long private drive leading to the Williams estate. Snow covered the manicured grounds, transforming the landscape into something from a winter fairy tale. Lights glowed warmly from the windows of the massive colonial-style mansion, and luxury vehicles lined the circular driveway despite the weather. I parked my modest Toyota at the far end, feeling suddenly self-conscious about its salt-stained exterior and the front bumper still dented from a minor fender bender last summer. Looking in the rearview mirror, I grimaced at my appearance. 9 hours of stress driving had left dark circles under my eyes, and my carefully styled hair had collapsed into limp waves. My simple blue dress, chosen specifically because Miranda once complimented it, now seemed hopelessly plain compared to what I imagined would be inside. Still, I had made it. Against all odds and warnings, I had driven through a blizzard to support my sister on her special day. Surely that counted for something. I carefully extracted the cake carrier from the passenger seat, checking to make sure the delicate raspberry decorations had survived the journey. The recipe had taken 3 attempts to perfect, just like our grandmother used to make. It was beautiful if I said so myself. Taking a deep breath, I made my way up the cleared path to the front door, my dress shoes slipping slightly on patches of ice. Music and laughter spilled out as I approached. I had arrived at last. The massive oak door swung open effortlessly, revealing a foyer larger than my entire apartment. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over marble floors and floral arrangements that must have cost more than my monthly rent. A uniformed server passed with a tray of champagne flutes, barely glancing in my direction as I stood awkwardly with my cake carrier snowmelt dripping from my coat onto the immaculate floor. No one greeted me. No one asked for my name or invitation. The crowd of at least 80 people milled about in designer evening wear diamonds, catching the light as hands gestured during animated conversations. I scanned the room for Miranda, but did not see her among the elegantly dressed guests. I shed my wet coat, draping it over my arm since I saw no obvious coat check. Smoothing my dress and attempting to fluff my flattened hair, I took a deep breath and stepped further into the party. The cake felt heavier with each step, my arms beginning to ache from holding it for so long. Making my way through the crowd was like navigating an alien landscape. Conversations paused momentarily as I passed curious eyes assessing and dismissing me in the same glance. I caught fragments of discussions about vacation homes in Aspen, private school admissions, and charity galas with five-figure ticket prices. In the main reception room, a string quartet played in the corner, competing with the buzz of conversation. Ice sculptures adorned buffet tables, laden with gourmet hors d'oeuvre. Photographers circulated, documenting the event for what would undoubtedly be a feature in some society publication. I had never felt more out of place. "Excuse me," I asked a server carrying an empty tray. "Could you point me toward Miranda Williams? Or Miranda Carter?" I added, unsure if she had already started using her fiancé's surname. "Miss Carter is in the East drawing room with the Williams family," he replied, with practiced politeness, gesturing toward a hallway to the right. Following his directions, I moved away from the main gathering. The cake was really starting to strain my arms now, and I looked for a place to set it down temporarily. A dessert table near the back wall seemed the logical choice, but as I approached, I heard familiar laughter coming from a small group standing just around the corner. I paused, smiling at the sound of my sister's voice. I would surprise her properly, I thought, as soon as I put down this cake. But before I could move, the conversation became clear, stopping me in my tracks. I swear, when I saw that weather forecast, all I could think was that at least we would not have to worry about Amelia showing up. Miranda was saying, her voice carrying that new affected accent. "Can you imagine her here, in front of all these people?" A male voice, presumably Harrison's, replied with amusement. "Is she really that bad? She is just so earnest and completely oblivious to how she comes across. She would probably talk to your mother about coupons or ask your father about his business like he is running some corner store." Laughter rippled through the group. "Did she actually try to drive down in this storm?" a female voice asked. "She texted me something about being on her way. I just ignored it. I figured maybe the universe would do me a favor and the roads would be closed. Or, honestly, I hoped she would crash." More laughter, louder this time. "Not like die or anything," Miranda clarified, though her tone suggested this was merely an afterthought. Just enough to give her a reason to turn back. She is so determined to be part of this weekend when she clearly does not belong. "The persistent big sister act must be exhausting," another voice commented. "You have no idea," Miranda sighed dramatically. "She still thinks we are these inseparable sisters who tell each other everything. She cannot accept that I have outgrown her. Every time she calls it is this whole guilt trip about how she sacrificed everything for me growing up." "Well, she will not be able to use that line anymore once you are officially a Williams Harrison," said smugly. "Maybe she will finally get the hint." The world around me seemed to fade, the voices becoming distant as blood rushed in my ears. My hands trembled, nearly dropping the cake I had spent hours perfecting. 9 hours of dangerous driving, years of support and love, and this was how my sister truly saw me, as an embarrassment, a burden. Someone she hoped would crash on icy roads rather than attend her engagement party. I stood frozen, unable to move forward or retreat. The group continued their conversation, unaware of my presence just feet away. I saw Miranda, clearly now radiant in a silver designer dress, her hair and makeup professionally done. Harrison stood beside her, his arm possessively around her waist, while 2 other couples completed their circle. They all held crystal flutes of champagne, toasting and laughing at my expense. In that moment, the full weight of years of growing distance crashed down on me. Every unanswered call, every canceled plan, every subtle dismissal suddenly made perfect sense. It had not been busyness or oversight. My sister had been deliberately pushing me away, embarrassed by my very existence in her new polished life. The physical pain was startling, a tight constriction in my chest, as if something essential had been torn away. I had given up my dreams for her, structured my life around supporting her, believed unquestioningly in our bond, even as evidence mounted that it had frayed beyond repair. And now I knew the truth. She had not only outgrown me, she actively wished me gone. As I stood there paralyzed by shock and heartbreak, Miranda turned slightly, and for one terrible moment our eyes met across the room. Her smile froze, champagne glass suspended mid-air as recognition dawned in her expression. The look on Miranda's face shifted rapidly from shock to embarrassment to something that resembled annoyance more than guilt. Her eyes darted around, checking if anyone else had noticed me, standing there clutching my homemade cake like some pathetic offering. My lungs seemed to have forgotten how to function. I felt lightheaded, my vision narrowing to a tunnel that contained only my sister's face. The cake in my hands suddenly felt impossibly heavy, a physical manifestation of all my misplaced love and effort. With mechanical movements, I walked forward, not toward Miranda's group, but toward the dessert table nearby. I set the cake down carefully, absurdly concerned about damaging it even now. From my purse, I extracted the small card I had written earlier, placing it beside the cake. "Congratulations. From Amelia. Nothing more." By now, the conversation in Miranda's circle had stopped. I could feel their stares without looking up, the awkward silence expanding to fill the space between us. When I finally raised my head, Miranda had taken a few steps toward me, her expression now composed into a mask of surprise that did not reach her eyes. "Amelia." Her voice carried across the room, drawing attention from nearby guests. "What are you doing here? We thought the storm would have made it impossible to travel." I was surprised by the steadiness of my own voice when I replied. Apparently not even a blizzard could keep me away, though now I understand why you might have hoped otherwise. The color drained from her face. Behind her, Harrison cleared his throat uncomfortably. "You must be the famous sister," he said, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. "Miranda has told us so much about you." I did not take his hand. "I am sure she has." The tension was palpable. Other guests were beginning to notice, conversations quieting as attention shifted to our uncomfortable tableau. I saw calculation in Miranda's eyes as she assessed the potential social damage of this encounter. "You must be exhausted from your drive," she said, her voice honeyed with fake concern. "Let me show you where you can freshen up." It was a clear attempt to remove me from the public eye, to contain whatever scene she feared I might create. Part of me wanted to comply, to follow her to some private space where I could unleash 9 years of accumulated hurt and betrayal. But another part, a stronger part I had not known existed, refused to be managed or contained. "I drove 9 hours through a snowstorm to be here," I said, my voice clear enough to carry to the curious onlookers. "I nearly crashed twice on black ice. I brought your favorite cake made from Grandma's recipe. I did all that because I thought our relationship mattered." I paused, meeting her gaze directly. "I will not stay where I am not wanted." Miranda stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You are making a scene. Whatever you think you heard, you misunderstood." Did I misunderstand? I hoped she would crash, or the part about how embarrassing I am, or how you have been ignoring my texts because you hoped I would not make it. Each question landed like a physical blow, making her flinch. I understood perfectly. Harrison moved to stand beside Miranda, his face tight with annoyance. "Look, obviously there has been a misunderstanding. Why do not we all take a moment to calm down?" I looked at him, this man who had laughed at the idea of my car sliding off an icy road, and felt nothing but pity. There is no misunderstanding, and there is nothing to calm down from. I am perfectly calm. And surprisingly, I was. The initial shock and pain had crystallized into something harder, clearer. I looked around at the opulent room, the watching strangers, the sister I no longer recognized, and felt a sudden, overwhelming desire to be anywhere but here. "Enjoy the cake," I said, turning away. "It was always your favorite, though you might want to check if it is up to William's standards before serving it to your guests." I walked away, ignoring Miranda, calling my name with increasing irritation. I retrieved my wet coat from where I had draped it, not caring that it dripped onto the expensive carpet. The same server who had directed me earlier watched with undisguised curiosity. The blast of cold air as I stepped outside was bracing, bringing me back to my physical senses. Snow continued to fall, though less heavily than before. I made my way carefully down the icy path to my car, which looked even more out of place now dusted with fresh snow amid the luxury vehicles. Once inside with the door closed against the world, I finally allowed the tears to come. They flowed silently at first, then with heaving sobs that shook my entire body. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel, releasing years of one-sided love and misplaced loyalty. The sister I had cherished existed only in my memory. The woman in that house was a stranger who happened to share my blood and history. When the sobs finally subsided, I sat up and wiped my eyes looking at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My makeup was ruined, eyes red and swollen, but there was something else there too. A clarity I had not seen in a long time. I turned the key in the ignition, but immediately realized I was in no condition to drive, especially in these treacherous conditions and growing darkness. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation was fading, leaving bone-deep exhaustion in its wake. The thought of the 9-hour journey home filled me with dread. I pulled out my phone, searching for nearby accommodations. The nearest hotel was a luxury resort that was undoubtedly beyond my budget, but about 20 minutes away there was a roadside motel that had vacancies. It would have to do. As I carefully navigated out of the long driveway, I glanced back at the glowing windows of the mansion. In one of them, I thought I saw a figure watching my departure. Whether it was Miranda or not, I could not tell. And for the first time, I realized I did not care. The Pinewood Motel looked like something from another era, its neon vacancy sign flickering against the falling snow. The small office was warm and smelled of coffee and cinnamon, a welcome contrast to the bitter cold outside. Behind the front desk, an older woman with silver-streaked hair looked up from her paperback novel. "Goodness, honey, you look like you have had quite a night," she said, putting her book aside. Her name tag read Margaret. You could say that I replied, attempting a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. "Do you have a room available?" "Just for tonight." "You are in luck. Got a few rooms open due to this weather keeping folks away." She pushed the registration card toward me. "Cash or credit?" As I filled out the form, Margaret studied my face with kind but perceptive eyes. "Not to pry, but are you okay to be alone tonight? You look like you have been through something." The unexpected kindness from this stranger nearly undid me again. I swallowed hard against the lump in my throat. "I will be fine. Just a family situation that did not go as planned." Margaret nodded sagely. "Those are often the worst kind. Room 7 is all yours. And there is hot water for tea in the breakfast nook if you want some. Might help settle your nerves." The room was basic but clean, with a queen bed covered in a faded floral comforter, a small television, and a bathroom with slightly yellowed fixtures. It was worlds away from the luxury of the Williams estate, but somehow felt more genuine, more honest in its simplicity. I washed my face, removing all traces of ruined makeup, and changed into the emergency set of pajamas I always kept in my car. As I was about to settle into bed, I remembered Margaret's offer of tea and decided some warmth might help calm my still racing thoughts. The small breakfast area was empty except for Margaret, who was arranging muffins in a display case for the morning. She looked up when I entered, her face softening with sympathy. "Chamomile or peppermint?" she asked, already reaching for the electric kettle. "Chamomile, please. Thank you for this." She nodded, preparing the tea with practiced movements. "Been running this place 30 years. Seen all kinds of travelers, all kinds of situations. Sometimes folks just need a kind word and a hot drink." We sat in companionable silence as the tea steeped. Outside, the snow continued its silent descent, coating the world in white. "Family trouble?" Margaret finally asked, her tone gentle and non-intrusive. I nodded, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. "My sister. I drove 9 hours through this storm to surprise her at her engagement party. Overheard her saying some unpleasant things about me." Margaret clicked her tongue sympathetically. "Sisters can cut deeper than anyone cannot they? Got one myself. Did not speak for 15 years. This caught my attention. 15 years. What happened? Married a man she did not approve of. Called him trash to his face at our wedding. Called me worse for choosing him." She shook her head at the memory. "Pride is a powerful thing in families. Kept us apart through my children's births, my husband's death, her divorce. all those years wasted. Did you ever reconcile? I asked, suddenly desperate to know if there was a happy ending to her story. Eventually. Her heart attack scared us both enough to reach out. Too late for all we had missed, but we made peace. Margaret's eyes, wise with experience, met mine. The thing I learned, though, sometimes blood does not mean loyalty, and forgiveness does not always mean letting someone back into a position where they can hurt you again. Her words resonated in a way that all my friends' advice over the years had not, perhaps because she had lived it, had survived the pain, and emerged with wisdom rather than bitterness. I keep thinking about all I sacrificed for her, I admitted. College opportunities, career advancements, even relationships that might have gone somewhere if I had not been so focused on being there for her. And now you are wondering if it was worth it, Margaret nodded. That is the hardest part, realizing that the story you have been telling yourself about your relationship might not match reality. As we talked, my phone vibrated repeatedly in my pocket. I finally pulled it out to see a string of texts from Miranda. 8:47 p.m. Where did you go? You cannot just leave like that. 8:52 p.m. You are being ridiculous. You heard a private conversation out of context. 9:15 p.m. Harrison's parents are asking questions. This is embarrassing. 9:22 p.m. I cannot believe you would ruin my engagement party like this. 9:30 p.m. Are you driving home in this weather? At least let me know you are safe. No apology. No acknowledgement of the hurt she had caused. Only concern about how my reaction affected her image with her future in-laws. The final text asking about my safety seemed more like an afterthought, a performative gesture of sisterly concern. I showed the messages to Margaret, who read them with raised eyebrows. She said, handing the phone back. Notice what is missing. An apology, I replied. That, yes, but also any recognition of your feelings. It is all about her embarrassment, her party, her future in-laws. Even when asking if you are safe, it is framed as an accusation. I scrolled back through months of text exchanges between us, seeing the pattern Margaret had immediately identified. Our communications had become entirely one-sided. I shared asked questions, offered support. Miranda responded with brief acknowledgments, if at all never reciprocating the interest or care. I think I have been holding onto a relationship that does not exist anymore, I said quietly. Maybe it has not existed for years. Margaret patted my hand, recognizing that is the first step to healing, honey. Does not make it hurt any less now, though. I returned to my room with a clearer mind, if not a lighter heart. Sleep eluded me as I lay awake reviewing not just tonight's revelations, but years of interactions with new eyes. Had I been so desperate to maintain our childhood closeness that I had ignored all evidence of its dissolution? Around midnight, I called Natalie, not caring about the late hour. She answered immediately, her voice alert with concern. Amelia, are you okay? Where are you? I told her everything, the words pouring out in a cathartic flood. The drive, the overheard conversation, the confrontation meeting Margaret. Natalie listened without interruption, occasionally making sounds of sympathy or outrage. I have been telling you for years that she does not deserve you, she said when I finally finished. But I am so sorry it happened this way. What are you going to do now? I think I said slowly, the decision crystallizing as I spoke. I need to let her go. Not with anger or drama. Just release the expectation that we will ever have the relationship I thought we had. That sounds healthy, Natalie approved, though I would not judge you if you wanted to send a strongly worded email first. Despite everything that made me laugh, actually I think I might. Not out of anger, but just to explain why I am stepping back. For my own closure. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and began writing. The words flowed easily now, without the confusion and self-doubt that had clouded my perspective for so long. I wrote about my love for her, the joy of our childhood together, the sacrifices that had never felt like sacrifices because of how much I cared. I acknowledged that people grow and change, that perhaps I had held too tightly to a role that she had outgrown. But I also wrote honestly about the hurt of tonight, the years of feeling increasingly dismissed and devalued. I made it clear that I would no longer chase a relationship that brought me only pain, that I deserved better than to be someone's embarrassing secret tolerated out of obligation. I ended not with recrimination, but with release. I will always cherish the sister you were, and I wish nothing but happiness for the woman you have become. But I need to step away now to build a life that honors my worth, rather than constantly proving it to someone who cannot see it. I hope someday we might find a new way to be in each other's lives, one built on mutual respect rather than shared history. Until then, I am letting go with love. I did not send it immediately, saving it as a draft to review in the morning when emotions were not so raw. But the act of writing it was cathartic, a declaration of independence from patterns that had defined me for too long. As dawn broke over the snow-covered landscape, I felt exhausted but strangely peaceful. Whatever happened next, I had spoken my truth. I had stood up for myself. And perhaps most importantly, I had finally seen clearly what had been in front of me all along. Morning arrived with clear skies and bright sunshine that made the snow-covered landscape glitter like a field of diamonds. The storm had passed, leaving behind a transformed world. It felt symbolic somehow, as if nature were reflecting my own internal shift. After a simple breakfast of coffee and one of Margaret's surprisingly delicious blueberry muffins, I checked out of the motel. Margaret handed me a thermos of fresh coffee for the road and a slip of paper with her phone number. "For if you ever need a friendly ear," she said with a warm smile. "Or if you find yourself passing through again under happier circumstances." The highways had been plowed overnight, making the return journey much less treacherous than my drive down. Still, I took my time, stopping regularly to stretch and process my thoughts. During one such break at a scenic overlook, I reread the email I had written to Miranda, made a few small edits, and finally hit send. Whatever her response, the act of expressing my feelings honestly felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. As miles of snow-covered farmland passed by my window, I found myself listening to a podcast about setting healthy boundaries that Natalie had recommended months ago. The host's words resonated deeply. Boundaries are not about punishing others or controlling their behavior. They are about honoring your own needs and values and taking responsibility for your own well-being. For so long, I had equated self-sacrifice with love, especially when it came to Miranda. I had prided myself on having no boundaries, on always being available, always putting her needs first. But that approach had led me here, driving home alone after being mocked and dismissed by the very person for whom I had given so much. Midway through my journey, I called my boss, Daniel. He answered on the first ring, concern evident in his voice. "Amelia, how are you?" Natalie mentioned. "There was some family emergency." "I am okay," I replied, surprised to find it was mostly true. "But I need to ask for a favor. Would it be possible for me to take next week off? I have some personal things I need to sort through." Daniel did not hesitate. "Of course. You have plenty of accumulated vacation time. Take what you need, and let me know if there is anything else we can do." His immediate support without questions or guilt highlighted just how abnormal my relationship with Miranda had become. The people who truly valued me did not make me feel like a burden for having needs. By the time I reached Chicago late that afternoon, I had formulated a plan. This week would be about reconnecting with myself, rediscovering the parts of my identity that had been subsumed by my role as Miranda's protector and supporter. The first step was finding a therapist. Natalie had been suggesting this for years, but I had always brushed it off, insisting I was fine. Now I recognized the wisdom in getting professional support to untangle the complex emotions around my relationship with Miranda. Through my insurance provider, I found Dr. Rebecca Chen, a family therapist specializing in sibling relationships and boundary setting. Our first session was revelatory. Dr. Chen introduced the concept of the rescuer personality type, explaining how people who take on caregiving roles early in life often struggle to form balanced relationships. The rescuer identity becomes so intertwined with your sense of self that letting go feels like losing a part of who you are, she explained. But the truth is, you are not abandoning your sister by prioritizing your own well-being. You are modeling healthy behavior and giving her the opportunity to develop her own competence and independence. Over subsequent sessions, we explored the roots of my rescuer tendencies, tracing them back to our parents' divorce and my mother's emotional withdrawal during that difficult time. I had stepped into the void, becoming Miranda's primary source of emotional support. That role had shaped my choices for so long that I struggled to envision a life not defined by it. Dr. Chen recommended a support group for adult children from dysfunctional families. There I met others who understood the complex grief of mourning a relationship that still technically existed. Their stories helped me feel less alone, less dramatic for drawing this line in the sand over what some might view as a minor slight. Family dysfunction thrives in secrecy, said Julia, a group member whose story particularly resonated with me. When you speak your truth and set boundaries, you are not just helping yourself, you are breaking a cycle. During this week of reflection and growth, Miranda finally responded to my email. Her reply was shorter than mine and defensive in tone. I think you are blowing this way out of proportion. Yes, I said some things I should not have, but it was just party talk. Everyone vents about their family sometimes. I do not understand why you are making this into such a huge deal, or why you needed to embarrass me in front of Harrison's family. When you calm down and stop being so sensitive, we can talk about this like adults. A month ago, this response would have sent me spiraling into self-doubt. Was I overreacting? Was I too sensitive? Should I apologize for embarrassing her? But now, with clarity born of distance and support, I could see the manipulation inherent in her words. The attempt to make me question my own reality to center her embarrassment rather than my hurt. I did not respond immediately. Instead, I showed the email to Dr. Chen at our next session, who helped me craft a reply that maintained my boundaries without escalating the conflict. Thank you for your response, I wrote. I understand we see this situation differently. I am not asking you to agree with my perspective, only to respect that this is how I experience things and that my feelings are valid. I need some space right now, and I hope you can respect that too. Her subsequent messages grew increasingly frustrated as I maintained this calm, firm stance. Eventually, they tapered off altogether. Meanwhile, other parts of my life began to flourish in the space created by stepping back from this draining relationship. I reconnected with old friends. I had lost touch with people who expressed genuine joy at hearing from me again. I joined a writing workshop, pursuing a creative passion I had neglected for years. At work, I applied for a promotion I would have previously talked myself out of, believing I did not have time for additional responsibilities due to my frequent trips to visit Miranda. To my surprise and delight, I got the position along with a significant salary increase. With my new financial stability, I began looking for a new apartment, something that was just for me, that reflected my tastes and needs, rather than being a convenient base for my caretaking activities. I found a sunny one-bedroom in a vibrant neighborhood with a small balcony, perfect for the container garden I had always wanted to grow. The call from my mother came, as I knew it would, about 3 weeks after the engagement party incident. Miranda tells me you are not speaking to her, she began without preamble. What is going on with you two? She is your sister, Amelia. You cannot just cut her off because of some petty disagreement. I took a deep breath, centering myself before responding. It was not a petty disagreement, Mom, and I have not cut her off. I have asked for space while I process some hurtful things that happened. She is getting married, Amelia. This should be a happy time for her. Cannot you just let whatever it is go for her sake? The familiar pressure to sacrifice my feelings for Miranda's comfort pressed down on me. But this time I resisted. I have spent my entire life putting Miranda's feelings first, I said quietly. Right now, I need to honor my own. I am not asking you to take sides or understand completely. I am just asking you to respect my decision. The conversation continued in circles for a while, with my mother alternating between guilt trips and demands for detailed explanations. I maintained my boundary, neither giving in nor becoming defensive. When we hung up, I felt drained but proud of myself for staying firm. As spring arrived, bringing new life to the city, I found myself flourishing in unexpected ways. Through my writing group, I met Jason, a thoughtful high school English teacher with kind eyes and a quick wit. Our friendship evolved naturally into something deeper, marked by mutual respect and genuine interest in each other's lives and dreams. Unlike previous relationships that had withered under the weight of my commitment to Miranda, this one had room to grow. Jason understood boundaries, having established his own with a difficult father. He never made me feel selfish for prioritizing my needs or pursuing my goals. Healthy love expands your world, he told me one evening as we walked along the lakeshore. It does not shrink it. 6 months after that fateful engagement party, I barely recognized the woman I had been. The constant anxiety, the need for approval, the exhausting hypervigilance to others' needs at the expense of my own, all had diminished significantly. In their place grew confidence, peace, and a genuine excitement about my future. I still thought of Miranda, often felt twinges of sadness for what we had lost, or perhaps had never truly had. But those thoughts no longer consumed me or sent me into spirals of self-doubt. They were simply part of my story, informing but not defining my present or future. Almost exactly 1 year after the engagement party incident, an email arrived from Miranda. The subject line read simply, "Wedding Invitation." Inside was a digital invitation to her upcoming wedding scheduled for 3 months later at an exclusive resort in Napa Valley. No personal note accompanied it, just the formal invitation that had clearly been sent to everyone on her guest list. I sat with the email open on my screen for a long time, examining my feelings. There was a dull ache, but not the sharp pain I might have expected a year ago. After discussing it with Dr. Chen and Jason, I made my decision. I would not attend the wedding, but I would acknowledge it. I ordered a nice gift from their registry, a set of crystal wine glasses that I knew would appeal to Miranda's aesthetic. With it, I sent a card expressing genuine good wishes for her marriage, signed simply, "With love, Amelia." It was a boundary that honored both my need for distance and the familial connection that, despite everything, still existed between us. I did not expect a response and was surprised when a thank you note arrived 2 weeks later, handwritten rather than the standard printed acknowledgement I had anticipated. "Thank you for the beautiful glasses," Miranda had written. "They are perfect. I understand why you have chosen not to attend, and I respect your decision. Harrison and I will toast to your health when we use them." It was not an apology, but it was perhaps an olive branch of sorts. A recognition of the new terms of our relationship, one marked by polite distance rather than the intense, unbalanced connection of before. Life continued its forward momentum. My promotion at work led to exciting new projects and responsibilities. Jason and I moved in together, blending our lives and libraries in a larger apartment with room for both his piano and my expanding container garden. I completed the first draft of a novel, something I had dreamed of doing since childhood but had never made time for until now. I maintained minimal contact with Miranda, exchanging occasional texts on birthdays and holidays. Our conversations remained surface level but civil. I no longer felt the compulsion to overshare or the sting of her lack of reciprocal interest. It was what it was, a redefined relationship with clear expectations on both sides. Then came a day I had not anticipated. Shopping for a birthday gift for Jason in an upscale department store, I literally bumped into Miranda as we both reached for the same display of men's watches. "Amelia," she said, genuine surprise in her voice. "I did not know you shopped here." Occasionally, I replied, noting the subtle judgment in her comment, but letting it slide. "How are you? How is married life?" An awkward silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken history. Miranda looked different somehow. The polished perfection was still there, but something about her seemed less rigid, less performative. "Would you have time for a coffee?" she asked suddenly. There was a cafe on the 3rd floor. My treat. Curiosity overcame my hesitation. "Sure, I have time." Seated across from each other with steaming mugs between us, we navigated the strange territory of being simultaneously intimate strangers and estranged sisters. Small talk about work and weather gradually gave way to something more substantial. "I received your gift," she said. "The wine glasses. They are beautiful. I am glad you like them. Congratulations on the wedding. The photos I saw online looked lovely." Another pause, longer this time. Miranda traced the rim of her mug with one manicured finger. "I have been thinking a lot about what happened," she finally said. "At the engagement party, and after." I waited, neither encouraging nor discouraging her to continue. "I was not very nice to you," she admitted, a significant understatement that nonetheless represented more acknowledgement than I had expected. "I got caught up in impressing Harrison's family and friends. They had certain expectations, and I was trying so hard to meet them that I forgot who I was, who we were." It was not exactly an apology, but there was a vulnerability in her voice I had not heard in years. The thing is, she continued married life in that world is not quite what I expected. Everyone is so concerned with appearances, with status. Sometimes I miss the way things used to be, the simplicity of it. Part of me, the old rescuer part, wanted to jump in with reassurance and support. To offer to help her navigate this challenging new world, to be her ally and confidant again. But the wiser, more grounded part recognized this for what it was, a moment of genuine reflection, but not necessarily a commitment to real change. I appreciate you sharing that with me, I said carefully. Change is hard, especially when it involves reconciling different parts of your life and identity. She nodded, seeming relieved that I had not either rejected her overture or embraced it too enthusiastically. I know things cannot go back to how they were before, she said. Too much has happened. But maybe we could try to have some kind of relationship again. Start small, maybe lunch once a month or something. I considered her offer, checking in with my feelings. The old desperation to reconnect was gone, replaced by a measured openness to possibility. I would be open to that, I replied. But I need to be honest about something. This past year of distance has been really good for me. I have learned a lot about myself and what I need from relationships, including our relationship as sisters. What does that mean? She asked, a hint of the old defensiveness creeping into her tone. It means I cannot go back to how things were either, I explained gently. I cannot be the sister who drops everything whenever you call, who puts your needs above my own, who accepts scraps of attention and one-sided effort. I need reciprocity and respect. I need my boundaries to be honored. Miranda was quiet for a long moment, absorbing my words. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. That seems fair. I cannot promise I will get it right all the time. This is new territory for me, too. For both of us, I acknowledged. Maybe we can figure it out together, one step at a time. We exchanged phone numbers, though we already had each other's, a symbolic gesture of starting fresh. Our coffee lasted another 20 minutes, conversation flowing more easily as we stuck to neutral topics. When we parted, there was a tentative hug, brief but not entirely uncomfortable. I watched her walk away, her designer handbag swinging at her side, and felt a complex mix of emotions. Hope, yes, but tempered with caution. A willingness to see where this might go, but not at the expense of all I had gained through our separation. In the year and a half since that snowstorm drive, I had rebuilt my life on a foundation of self-respect and healthy boundaries. I had discovered strengths I never knew I possessed, and dreams I had neglected for too long. I had found love with Jason, deep friendships with people who valued me, and professional fulfillment in work that challenged and engaged me. Most importantly, I had learned that loving someone does not mean erasing yourself. That supporting others should not come at the cost of abandoning your own needs and dreams. That healthy relationships expand rather than contract your world. My novel was published the following spring, a story about sisters finding their way back to each other after years of misunderstanding and hurt. Not our story exactly, but informed by it, transformed by imagination and distance into something universal rather than merely personal. At the book launch, among the crowd of well-wishers stood Miranda. She had come alone without Harrison, a choice that seemed significant somehow. She waited until the line of people seeking signatures had dwindled before approaching the table. "Congratulations," she said, placing my book before me for signing. "I always knew you were a wonderful writer." I looked up at her. This sister, who had been both my greatest love and deepest wound, and felt a sense of peace. We were finding our way toward a new kind of relationship, one built on who we were now, rather than who we had been. It was tentative and imperfect, marked by occasional missteps and old patterns that died hard, but it was authentic in a way our previous dynamic had not been. "Thank you for coming," I said, meaning it. "It means a lot." As I signed her copy, I thought about the long, snow-covered road that had led me here. How sometimes the most painful journeys lead to the most necessary destinations. How that night walking away from the cake and the sister who had wished me harm had been the first step toward truly finding myself. That painful night gave me the courage to finally put myself first. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away even from those you have always protected. It is not abandonment, it is growth. Have you ever had to walk away from a relationship that was hurting you more than helping you? Drop a comment below sharing your experience, and if you found value in my story, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to. Hear that setting boundaries is not selfish but necessary. Thank you for joining me on this journey of healing and self-discovery. Remember, you deserve relationships that honor your worth rather than constantly asking you to prove it.